Some of us from the get-go, they said, I'm not Somali. You know, I'm going to be my own self. I'm going to be independent. Some of us are saying, no, I want to be independent, but maybe still have partial relation with the so-called Somali Republic. In the world order, Somalia, I've been in England in the early 80s. I lived in London in 1980, 81, 82, 83. Here, in fact, there were not this many Somalis those days. But we had an embassy here at Edgewell Road, nearby Northern Arch, Somali embassy. Do you have an embassy today? When your number is in fact escalating, you are more than 80s here today, and you don't have a consulate that you can handle your own affairs. That means, from an international point of view, Somalia's state of affairs is not as Kenya, where they are well internationally represented. So the question of sovereignty, I think we need to think of how we can make up, how we can remediate, how we can really come up with something. But until today, many Somalis are confused of that nationhood. 6, I really think that there was lack of addressing issues of clans occupying other clans' territories. We Somalis, or many Africans, you know, we only think that Europeans only does who can colonize. We never thought that Africans can colonize another African. In Somalia, there are good examples that there are groups of Somali Africans who moved and colonized other people's territory. And we, until today, we are shying to address that issue. What's wrong with it? We fought against colonialism, right? We got our freedom from Britain, from Italy, from everywhere, because they were colonizers. So we have to find some voice for even those voiceless who can even say it. As Somali, not necessarily to be from that region, the other Somalis should really be courageous enough to say, that is wrong. This should stop. So, many Somalis started questioning in 1995, when in Baidoa there was a state called the Riverine State, formed in 1995. Within 6 months or so, it was aborted. It was toppled by another Somali. So they started questioning why this guy really is toppling this state that emerged right now. So what I'm trying to say is we need to think of certain issues that might really raise flags, raise flags of that kind. In fact, Somalia today, we can raise questions that regions, total regions, that are occupied by some other Somalis. Why we should shy, and we know that we have to be really frank. Unless we are frank enough, we cannot bring about peace. Truth is what really brings about peace. And lastly, but not the least, what I think was some of the reasons that failed or behind the failure of these peace efforts was lack of implementing on what is agreed upon. After the last 20 years, Somalis, although, as I said, failed, but there are some areas they were very close. And when we are looking for peace, we have to build on the little things we agreed on first. There were several things that we agreed upon, and we are, until today, shying to implement it. Just to give you some examples. In 1993, Addis Ababa Peace Agreement promoted the idea of regional autonomy. It was so rough, so difficult on us. How? You are anti-Somali unity. You are dividing Somalis. That was the responses. However, that idea, I think it was a very, very positive issue that we can think of. Because already in 1991, a whole region proclaimed itself that they are independent. So many of us, like myself, including myself, we believe that Somalia's unity is a sacrosanct. We cannot negotiate. I think we have to entertain, at least, here, because in Addis Ababa, 1993, those factions who are meeting there, they accommodated the idea of regional autonomy. In Cairo Accord in 1994, the G12, if you remember, they also accommodated the idea of, we can be regions. The S&M Declaration of Somaliland, as I already mentioned, and the Burma Conference in 1993 will also justify that a regional issue could be entertained. The SDM creation of SGC, Supreme Governing Council. The SDM, they felt that, this Supreme Governing Council could probably constitute a couple of regions, and then we could go from there. And they created their own government, their own parliament, their president. If you remember, Dr. Hassey was one of the presidents of that Supreme Governing Council. Even, I think I heard that Sharif Hassan was the first who was elected, but Hassey was the president. The creation of Puntland in 1997, it shows you, it's possible, if you can bring about peace to having a region, why not? What we're lacking is, or looking for is peace, right? So that regional issue, I think, we can think of. I love the unity of Somalia, but if you can keep that unity with some diversity, I think that is something we can think of. The Sodari Accord, 1997. Sodari, all Somali faction leaders who are there, they agreed upon something so vital for peace. They realized that Somalis are fighting over clan issues. And these clans are, nobody was ever fair when it comes to power share. One of the things that they agreed was, why we don't make this executive power rotated? I think that was very positive. Rather than always, focusing on one group. This time, if this group has the executive order, next time we move to this, next time to this, and so forth. The issue of power share. There are Somalis who really long for sharing power. If you look at what happened after '97, in 2000, the first transitional national government from ARTA resolutions, the authority went to one group of Somalis, and after 4 years, it moved to another group. After Impagati, another group took the power. I was expecting in the third time we'll move to another third group, but it went back to the same group. So this raised questions, this was flags, Once we agreed that we are all equal, in fact, they talk about some 4 point something, which is very complicated. But once we agreed on certain things, I think that rotation would have been something very, very helpful. Because the other groups would say, why really? Why always? Not only from 1997, when we agreed on this rotation, or this power should be between these 5 groups, even before, Somalia's executive authority was always the same as it is today. So we are in the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen, so we have to honor at least implementing whatever we agreed upon. Somalis agreed in ARTA the empowerment of women. It's just a slogan. Our ladies, in fact there are some panelists tonight who will talk about women and their role in Somalia. We empowered them, but that was verbal only. Nothing happened. Even if they were given something, they were given issues that are related to women and to children or to something, which is not fair. So we have agreed that in today's world, in many societies, 52-53% of their population are women. How we can ignore these powerful sources that we have in Somalia, why we cannot allow them to lead us, perhaps for better peaceful situations. Another thing we agreed in Impagati in Kenya in 2003, Somalia agreed on multiculturalism. It was so new to us that in their first transitional constitution, they said Somalia has two languages, two official languages. In fact, the first one is one we never heard about, Mai and Mahati. We heard about Maha, but now we have, the first is Mai, and we agreed upon it. We have some secretaries of state with us tonight. They will tell us, if you are talking about multicultural issues, your two languages, or whatever you agree on, they should be official in all official papers of the government. The letterheads should be written in both languages. The passport, anything governmental should be in both languages. The media of instruction should be in both languages. We have national television. It should be half. Half time should be in Mai, the other half should be in Maha. We have radio Mogadishu, has to be in this, because we already agreed on. I think if we implement those things, we will be very close to this peace issue that we are lacking today. So what are our chances in, when the TFG goes? In August, we all are waiting to the end of a transitional government. I don't have much to answer on that, but I have a couple of things to really maybe contribute. Post-TFG Somalia, number one, we need to enforce upon what is already agreed upon. I already listed for you guys. If we just implement those things, the post-TFG Somalia will be better than today. Number two, we have to safeguard the unity of Somalia by accommodating regional autonomy. We can be regions, but we still have our nation united. Okay, we can do that. Let us honor regions on their historic clan boundaries. During the British colonial time, ladies and gentlemen, Somalia was only 4 regions. Because they were called Northwest, and they had Central, and they had Southern and Eastern. The British military administration from 1940 to 50, Somalia were only 4 regions. Maybe that's why we have 4.5 right now. And really, they are very distinct if we just accommodate the Somali regions as they were in its historic perspectives. A third issue I would like to add is we have to suspend, I may be a little cruel to some of my diasporic Somalis, suspending citizenships of those Somalis who are engaged into criminal acts. We have Somalis who are Britons, who are Americans, who are Canadians, but who in their hands, they're bloody in something. I, as an American citizen, I cannot do anything illegal. I'm going to be penalized. Okay, why my American government will allow another Somali like me, who is an American citizen, and will be engaged into crime issues? So I will ask our friendly nations to really think. If they just suspend the citizenship of one of them, it will be a lesson to the others, and then we can find. All the warlords, all these money launderers. We created fat cats in Somalia. My own money that I sweat, when I sent to my mom, my mother is getting what? A photocopy of something that doesn't exist internationally. And they are making CEOs and all kinds of titles from my money. So therefore, I would warn and I would ask our friends to help us into those issues. 4, again, I'm back to what I already said, indigenization of reconciliation. Really, we have to indigenize our reconciliation efforts. And instead of really having all these fancy 5-star hotel conferences, we can go back to the region. And we can have, my father is Malak, and in fact he told me that if they accommodate that, I can really help to sorting the Somali problem. Because Somalis, they used to live under what? Under a tree. We never met under lobbies of hotels or something like that. And finally, I would like that in Somalia, the right men and women to take the right job. One of our difficulties today, people who are sort of running the affairs of Somalia, they are not qualified. They don't have the character, the capacity that they can do these things. How on earth, if, in America, I have a PhD, but if I go to apply a job to working part-time in McDonald's, my PhD won't help me. I have to be trained to how to really serve people who are coming to that place. We don't have a trained Somali for these jobs, ladies and gentlemen. We are not qualified for these jobs. So I call upon all Somalis that the right men and women to be in the right jobs. Assalamu alaikum.